Have you ever wanted to know just how big of a set of wheels and tires you can get away with on a stock Jeep Wrangler? If you've watched my channel long enough, you probably know how big of a set of wheels and tires you can get away with on the Rubicon 392. Or do you? So for those of you that don't already know, this Rubicon 392 is set up on the 38-1550s, and it's also got a set of 20x12 -44 wheels. Now with that being said, it works great most of the time. These things are extremely wide, and in all honesty, the Rubicon 392 handles them really well all stock. There are a few things that I've already done. So first things first, I had to trim down the rock sliders. So as you can tell right there, these are actually cut down about 3 inches in the back, as well as a few inches up front. I actually did trim this piece right here, which worked pretty well. You didn't have to cut too much to clear them. It was hitting it pretty aggressively, but with that little cut, it was able to clear on the street at least. Now for the front, what I had to do, obviously the Rubicon 392 comes with that steel bumper from the factory. So you've got those little corner pieces right here. I simply just unbolted those. And then once we moved to the very back, I tried a few different things because I've continued to rip off fender flares in the back. So in many of my off-road videos, you guys have seen where the fender flares have simply just ripped off. And that's because the tire would actually come up right here, and the way the two-piece fender on the Rubicon is made, it would stick down a little bit further right here, and it would just hit it up enough to actually rip it off. All these little plastic clips right here would break, which it's a simple and cheap fix, but it's really annoying to have to do. I've even cut the tub a little bit back here. You can see that angle. For some reason on this side, it did rub quite a bit more. Then we've also taken off the rest of the fender that's connected to the bumper back here, just to give us a little bit more space. But with all that being said, believe it or not, I took it on a trip here recently to Colmar Off-Road Park, and we still had some issues. And we're gonna fix all those issues with the help of Metalcloak. So I was fortunate enough to reach out to Metalcloak and actually got in touch with the right people that wanted to help us out with getting the Rubicon 392 squared away. Now they've actually sent over quite a few things to help us get this thing straightened out. One of the main things they sent are going to be the adjustable bump stops. So with those, we're able to select whatever height of a bump stop we actually need to make sure we still get the maximum articulation, but also we can get to that fine line to where it doesn't actually get into the fender. And obviously that's one of the biggest problems I've been having. We've also got a set of dampeners, and they're gonna be extremely beneficial for those harder impacts or whenever we do max out that suspension a little bit more. And then to top it all off, we've actually got a fender chop kit, which I've done before in the past, but never used a real kit. I'd always try to rig something up and just make it work. On the Rubicon two-piece fenders, you're able to cut this piece out just like I did in the back, but in the front, you don't have that extra support where the light is from the factory. So this kit is gonna allow us to cut down the two-piece fender and still be safe and secure. That way it doesn't blow off whenever we're going down the road. So the first thing I wanna get started with today is gonna be the fender chop kit. That way we can see just how much extra clearance we're gonna get, and then we can adjust the bump stops to where we actually need them. Now, this process is pretty straightforward. It's extremely similar to what I just recently showed you guys on the rear, but the front is a little bit different. For this kit, you don't really need much to make it happen, and for the price, it's pretty insane. So if you do have the factory color matched fender flares, or just the Rubicon fender flares in general, and you want to keep that look, then this is a great option for only around 250 bucks. Now, first and foremost, the packaging with these is pretty impressive. So the first thing we're going to pull out are going to be the actual brackets. So you can see there, they're already actually powder coated, and they've actually got a cutout for a lot to replace it right there. And they've got all the mounting points already pre-drilled. Everything's ready to go. Moving beyond that, we've got some hardware to actually install these. And then we've actually got our plug and play wiring kit, which is going to come with the light as well as the turn signal. It's a really nice setup. You honestly cannot beat that right there. And we've even got some pretty cool stickers. Now, whenever it comes to the Rubicon JL or JT, fender chop, inner fender well delete, whatever you want to call it, there are a few different methods online that people use. In all honesty, I've tried a few of the different ways to do it, and I've found a way that works for me the best and the fastest. So that method's what I'm going to show you today. To start, you need a 10mm socket and you've got a couple bolts in here actually holding the inner fender well liner together. So all you'll need to do is take those out first. Got one right here. You'll have the second one right here. And then the third and final one is right here. Now, after you do that, all that's going to be holding this is going to be those friction pins. So you'll see them lined all the way down right through here. You'll also see some on the back side. You'll feel the actual pressure and where it's holding. You're not going to be reusing this inner fender well liner anyway, so you don't really have to worry about it if you damage it. And while I'm doing this too, I almost completely forgot. I'd actually zip tied the inner fender well liner in the front all the way back right here. So this, even if I kept it flush, it was still sticking out too much. So on both sides, I actually zip tied it all the way back. So if you've done something like that, you will need to go ahead and cut it. Then once you've got all that taken care of, it gives you the ability to see everything from the inside. So then you'll go up, use your 10mm again, and loosen up this bolt right here. And before you get too excited and just decide to rip it off, you might want to go ahead and disconnect your actual lots. That way everything can come off whenever the time comes. So what you'll want to do is you want to find a good spot to grab, and then whenever it feels like it is the right spot, you'll just pull it. And be sure to remember all the bolts. You've got one right here that they hide, and honestly I always forget. Then you can pull it all off. So like I say, that is the fastest way to get it done. And to be 100% honest, if you're gonna do one of these, I definitely recommend buying some of these extra clips. You can buy them on Amazon, you can buy them from the actual parts store themselves, because inevitably you are gonna break some regardless of how you take it off. So I just prefer to do it a little bit faster, and you don't have to worry about getting frustrated. So now that we've done that, we will go ahead and take the rest of these out. And what do you know, we've even got 2 clips that are still good. Now for this next part here, you may have some extra clips that are actually still in this, so you'll go ahead and take those out. Then you can start pulling it apart. And just like that, you've got it into 2 separate pieces, and all we're left with is the actual color match part. Now, while you do have it off, I think it's easier to go ahead and grab a razor blade and cut all of these little pieces off, because you're not gonna need those anymore. And if you actually grab these and cut it at the right angle, kind of down like that, you don't have to worry about anything being left over. And then you're left with the piece you actually want. Now we'll go ahead and line our bracket up. And these should be 13mm. And sure enough, they are. And now I'm gonna line the fender up right before I cinch it down, just to make sure everything is in the right place. And I actually forgot to cut this piece right here. We won't need that piece, so go ahead and cut that piece off right there. And I'm gonna go ahead and hold it in place with the couple that I have left. And now I've got an idea of where I need it. Now that we've got all that done right there, I'm gonna go ahead and drill out the hole that I need right here for the side. Now for this next part, I'm actually gonna use a chase bit, because we need to drill this out to 3/4 of an inch, and obviously we can go out to the very edge of this one right here, and we'll be right at 3/4 of an inch, and we should be good to go. And now that we've got that drilled out, I'm gonna go ahead and set up the lights, make sure that they're all gonna work, and we'll get that amber light here on the side as well. As you can tell, this is gonna be the one that we just had to drill out for. Now what you'll wanna do is actually feed this back through this little plastic piece. You'll wanna feed the light through the hole right there, and then you'll pull this through, and then you'll pull it back on like that. But I'll show you in just a second. So for this first light up front, we'll just line it up. I'm gonna feed it through. Then once we feed that through, we'll push that sleeve back over it. Then we will just push it in. So that's the daytime running light. It's white, and of course you've got the amber light right there. And we've also got the amber light here on the side. I'm gonna go ahead and put in some of the rest of these clips, and then we'll tighten down these wires and we'll be good to go. Now I'm gonna zip tie these wires up just to make sure they're all nice and snug. And now we have that side, which is all done, and this side that is still factory. So you can tell the difference that you get in clearance right there just from looking at it. Pretty crazy difference, and it really does expose quite a bit more of that tire, which just gives it a way better look. Now, one of the best things about this kit, if you guys are gonna use it as like a placeholder or something like that, just to give you some extra clearance until you order different fenders, whatever the case may be, you don't have to cut any of these brackets. So you've actually got the brackets still right there in case you want to use some aftermarket fender that would use it later on. Of course, Metalcloak actually does make other fenders, as many of you know. That's pretty much what they're known for. They're crazy fenders and bumpers, but they do make an inner fender well liner kit too. So if you were going to run it like this, that would be a great option for this. And now they are both done, and as you can tell, they just look awesome. So we've got probably an extra 1 3/4 inches, if not 2 inches of clearance, and that is going to help out so much. Not only that, but I really do like the actual design and look. It's extremely easy to install. Everything works extremely well, and you don't lose that LED light that makes the JLs look so cool. So you've just got a different version of that light, and as you guys can tell right here, these are pretty rock solid, which is really impressive. Whenever I ran these before in the past, like I said, I didn't have a bracket for it. They flopped around the wind, and one time I got up to around 80 miles an hour, and they went gone, never to be found again. And now, since we've got all that done, it's time to check out those dampeners as well as the bump stops. So you can see right here, we've actually got 4 dampeners in this. And with these dampeners, the main point of them is to really soften that blow whenever your suspension comes close or is maxed out. So you can tell it's a much thicker material than what they use. It's just a completely different material altogether that will absorb the shock better and release the shock a little bit smoother. That way, whenever you do bottom out or you get close to it, you're not going to feel it near as aggressively. Now, I'm going to say it's safe to assume the smaller ones are for the front and the larger ones right here are for the back. Now, for dampeners, they're pretty darn easy to install, so that should take no time at all. Now, moving beyond that, we've got the adjustable bump stops. Now, these are going to be different for the front and for the rear. So we've got our different bolt lengths right here. So you've got the adjustments for the 4-inch, 3-inch, 2-inch, all the way down to 1 inch. And then we've got our individual pucks right here, which are the same. You're going to have the adjustability all the way between 1 inch up to 4 inches. So here is all 4 1-inch pucks. And then we've got all of our hardware to install for whatever length we decide we actually need. And then we might as well open this one up just to make sure these are for the rear. So the biggest difference you're going to see right away is that the rear bump stops are going to be square to match your square plate for your factory rear bump stops. And then you'll see you've got your hardware right here. And just looking at these rear ones, it's a bit more complicated. It looks like you can move and stack these however you prefer, and the hardware is a little bit more intricate. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and change out the dampeners in the rear, and then we'll move on to the actual bump stops. So I hope you guys can see this back here. These rear bump stops should be pretty easy to take out. So that's the factory bump stop right there, and then this is the Metalcloak bump stop. So a lot more surface area on this, and just feels like a completely different material altogether. I'm excited to see how these are going to work. Now to get to these in the front, I don't have much room, so I believe I'm actually going to have to get the Jeep flexed a little bit since I don't have a lift around and I don't feel like jacking it up. So let's just go see if we can flex it a little bit, get some space in there to put those new dampeners in. So definitely cutting out the rear fenders like I did previously, and cutting out these front fenders gives us way more travel. And now the dampeners are definitely going to help at those high rate of speed impacts, which tend to happen a bit more frequently than I care to admit. But the travel is pretty impressive on this stock suspension, and I really love how good the suspension is from the factory, so I really don't want to change it. So all these parts and pieces that I've added on today really just allow me to enjoy the Jeep the way it came from the factory just a little bit longer. So let's see if we can get in there to that bump stop now. Oh. And we got it. So here's the factory dampener versus the Metalcloak dampener. Quite a big difference right there. Well, it seems like for now, I'm not gonna be able to get this bump stop in there until I take this and put it on a lift. So this is 100% full flex with the 38 1550s. No rubbing, no scrubbing. A little bit back here, but like I said, this fender moves back here, so it's not an issue at all. It's pretty impressive. I do want to get these new dampeners in there, but I don't need any bump stocks added to the front at least. And for the rear, let's check one more time since it is completely flexed out. Hard to see, but it is touching a little bit right there, and it's just barely clearing right through here. Pretty impressive. Oh yeah, all the way down on the bump stop. So really and truly, even for the back right now with the 38 1550s, we don't need any extra bump stop, which is blowing my mind. It is completely clearing. The only place we're having a little bit of an issue with is up here at the front, and that the bump stop is not going to help us with that. So we might get 1 inch of drop on the bump stop, which would eliminate it from hitting up there. But as for that right there, there's not really much you can do except for a little trimming. Now, I'll be honest with you, whenever we're going riding and stuff, I don't really feel it hit. You can see just how close it is. This is at full flex, but it would keep driving just like this with no issues, because it just barely nicks it. Well, honestly, can't believe I'm saying this, but with the setup we're running right now, with the Metalcloak Fender Gutz Delete Kit, and also deleting the rear, I don't need to install the bump stops. It's crazy with the 38 1550s on the Rubicon 392, which does have around a 2-inch lift from the factory. I can run these 38 1550s. It's insane. Now these dampeners are going to be awesome and come in handy a lot. I am going to have to wait until I can get this thing up on a lift, until I can install the front ones. There's just not enough space in between the factory cools. Now if you guys are wanting to find any of this stuff, I'm going to have their website linked down in the description below. So if you haven't already checked them out, go over there and spend some money. Now, of course, everything made by Metalcloak is proudly made in the USA, so it's a great company to work with, and their products are top notch. Now, obviously for the channel, this is a big step working with a big company like Metalcloak. If you guys want to see more videos like this with some awesome products, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. But until next time, Godspeed.